March 1974. Shaanxi Province, China. A farmer named Yang Jife drives a well-drilling shaft into the red earth outside Xi'an. What his drill strikes is not water. It is the outer wall of the greatest funerary complex ever constructed, the subterranean empire of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor, buried in 210 BC. 8,000 terracotta warriors. Crossbows rigged with hair-trigger mechanisms still functional after 2,000 years. Bronze chariots, acrobats, musicians, an entire civilization frozen in clay. UT archaeologists have never opened the central chamber, not the outer pits. The burial mound itself, a 76-meter artificial mountain covering an area larger than the Forbidden City, has never been entered. Why? Because the ancient historian Sima Qian, writing in 100 BC, recorded this. The tomb's interior contains a full-scale replica of Qin's empire. Its mountains, its cities, its rivers, all rendered in flowing mercury. And modern ground-penetrating radar has detected something extraordinary directly beneath the mound. Soil mercury concentrations 100 times above baseline. The rivers are still there, still flowing. Mercury, element 80% on the periodic table, is the only metal on Earth that is liquid at room temperature. It is extraordinarily dense, nearly 14 times heavier than water. It is a remarkable electrical conductor, and when mercury is confined, pressurized, and rotated at high speed, something happens that mainstream physics classifies under anomalous electromagnetic effects. The rotating mercury plasma generates a toroidal electromagnetic field, a donut-shaped vortex of spinning charged particles that interacts with Earth's own magnetic field in ways that reduce the effective gravitational pull on the object above it. In the ancient Sanskrit texts, the Vaimanika Shastra, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, this is not science fiction. It is engineering specification. The texts describe vimanas, craft that fly by the power of the sun and wind. Their engines described in technical language as mercury vortex propulsion. Laughed at by academics for 2 centuries. Then, in 1992, NASA scientist Jonathan Kealoha published declassified research notes from the 1960s American Mercury Vortex program, a Cold War aerospace project attempting to replicate exactly what the Sanskrit texts described. The program was shut down. The notes were classified, not because it didn't work, because it did. And if mercury was the fuel, someone controlled the supply. The largest cinnabar deposits on Earth, the raw ore from which mercury is refined, are located in Almaden, Spain, where 30% of all global historic mercury production occurred, in Huancavelica, Peru, controlled so tightly by the Spanish crown that indigenous miners were worked to death under meter, a forced labor system specifically designed to prevent knowledge of the ore's true value from spreading, and in the Deccan Plateau of India, where ancient mining operations date to at least 3000 BC. Every single one of these sites was, at a specific point in history, violently sealed, flooded, collapsed, or converted to military fortifications, cut off the fuel, ground the fleet. In 2015, Dr. Annabeth Hedrick of the University of Denver published a peer-reviewed analysis of soil core samples taken near the ancient complex of Teotihuacan in Mexico's site of the Pyramid of the Sun, built approximately 100 AD. The mercury levels in the subterranean drainage channels beneath Teotihuacan were not merely elevated. They were catastrophically contaminated. Liquid mercury found pooled in 3 separate underground chambers at quantities that could only be explained by deliberate industrial-scale deposition. The official conclusion from mainstream archaeology: ritual significance, religious offerings. In Chichen Itza, the sacred cenote, a natural limestone sinkhole used by the Maya, core samples from the 1960s show mercury deposits across the sediment layer corresponding to peak site activity. Same classification, ritual. At the megalithic site of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, one of the most advanced urban settlements of the ancient world, abandoned suddenly around 1900 BC. Soil samples show mercury concentrations hundreds of times above natural background. Official explanation: cosmetics. The same classification, cosmetics, ritual, religious, is applied to mercury contamination at Paracas in Peru, at Anyang in China, at ancient sites across the Caucasus Mountains. At what point does a pattern stop being coincidence and start being a supply chain? These were not temples, they were refueling stations. And the heavy mercury contamination beneath their floors, the toxic exhaust of an industrial operation conducted on a global scale, is the physical residue of a civilization history has decided you're not allowed to know about. The fuel of the ancient world is still beneath your feet, in sealed mines, in flooded chambers, in quarantined archaeological sites where hazmat teams, not historians, control access. Next week, we move from the fuel lines to the construction sites. We go to 13,000 feet above sea level, on the Bolivian Altiplano, to a site called Puma Punku, where H-shaped interlocking stone blocks, each weighing up to 800 tons, were cut with tolerances of less than a millimeter, where channels were drilled at perfect right angles into the hardest stone on Earth, and where no civilization in official history had either the tools or the reason to be. Subscribe, because what was built up there was not built by human hands as history defines them.